Everyone, welcome to episode 17 of the After Zero podcast. We have the usual people on the podcast today, except for Sean because he's apparently sick, allegedly, but I don't know what symptoms he
Eh.
has. My thing is that he
You,
could do our entire
You
WoW
know what
raid,
symptoms you know what
but
I'll say. You know what symptoms he has? He can raid and WoW today, and then afterwards go and do the Mage Tower. That's what symptoms he has.
hey, no
Get called
comment,
out,
no
Sean.
comment. You know what's funny is we could call him out as much as we want, and he's probably not going to watch the episode. So I
Yeah.
like,
He's just
there's
like
no
Keenan.
way, there's no way he watches this back.
Right.
So
We'll figure
we
it
can
out.
say whatever we want. But yeah, I mean, we're back, and I actually want to pick up the podcast with some things we left off with last time. We talked a little bit about what games we're looking forward to, and I had put this game on my list because I thought it was very pretty. I was really impressed by some of the graphics on it, the flow of the gameplay that we were seeing. And sometimes developers are really good at making trailers and making hype videos and gameplay videos to make you, feel excited. And Forspoken has definitely done that, but the release has been taken like so poorly. So, have you guys been keeping up with any of that at all?
I haven't seen a ton of it. Like you said, I saw the trailers and I saw that the game looked really pretty, and I was kind of excited for it. And then the only thing that I've really seen since it came out was like the super cringy dialogue that like some of the characters have, and I remember watching it. I watched like a clip of it, I think on like TikTok or something, and I was kind of like, I'm very glad I didn't play through this game.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
I
it is.
basically heard about the dialogue too, and then I heard some about some frame drop issues, but that's kind of whatever. It's kind of becoming common in new releases at this point.
Yeah, no, definitely. The whole thing about the dialogue is just so cringy, and it's like written by someone who's like, "Ooh, this is so cool for us to cuss in our video game." Like it's very
So,
forced.
it's like I don't know much about the story at all, but like just hearing the dialogue just sounds like a modern day dialogue mixed into like a fantasy game.
Dude, I half expect them to be like, "Holy crap, we killed the thing!" She.
Yeah, like literally, I expect like literally pop culture references with the way the voices are talking and just how they're talking.
Dude,
It's like what I
she's
expect to happen.
she's like, "Oh my
Which
god, we should dance, renegade."
Yeah.
is in like a fantasy setting, like it doesn't fit, right?
Yeah,
Like
they're
I
like
don't think.
have at thee, but then it's also
Yeah.
like renegade. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
it's like you expect them to, like say something like have at thee, then just start busting out laughing at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know. It's just been poorly done. But like I said, game devs have gotten really good at making their games look exciting and kind of getting everyone hyped for them, and
Well,
it doesn't really, it's not
I
a
mean,
hit.
we kind of talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but it's like one of those things where like they're relying heavily on like the visuals, it seems,
Yeah.
but didn't really put much thought into the rest of the game. So it's like visuals will only get people's attention for like, the first few playthroughs, and then after that, it's down to your gameplay and what game you actually made.
I mean,
Yep.
even when you think about like some of the prettiest games you've ever played, did you go back and play them just because they're pretty? Probably not.
Right.
Like I could, if I only care about how pretty it is, I could just watch a video on it.
I'll just watch a
It's
movie.
yeah, like
Yep.
there's just a lot of other ways you can go about getting that feeling. And like the gameplay is always going to be
I mean, like
the
for
number
somebody
one
like
thing.
me, I don't care about graphics really at all.
I mean, you
Like,
still play fucking what's it called?
Old
So
school
Need
we
for
know.
RuneScape, baby.
fucking,
Yeah.
I don't get it. What's funny, but you mentioned the performance dips and stuff like that because there was a talk from Xbox like last year. They were talking about how like in the Xbox is gonna like be a console that improves as the games develop and stuff. Like basically that it's gonna start outperforming the PS5 eventually.
Yeah.
Just because with some of their like updates, the software and shit like that. And it's still not. Like for Forspoken, it shows like the PS5 crisp 60 frames, which fucking consoles in their 60.
Are we talking about
FPS
adaptive
can't get
frames
over
here?
it.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, like crisp 60, it looks great. And then the Xbox like is always under 60. It's like 52, 55. And it's like a noticeable 52. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially at that lower registry, I feel like it's easy to see 8 frames when those 8 frames is like 15% of the frames total. Like,
Right.
whereas
Right.
like
You're not talking about the difference between 250 and 242.
no,
No, you're
exactly.
talking about 60 and 52. Yeah.
It's like quite literally it's like 15%. So it's just so noticeable, and I just think it's funny because people get into like the whole console conversation, and there's always the war that goes on, but it's like at the end of the day,
PC Master Race.
I mean, I'm definitely in that boat, but like entry level and going into it, it's like the PlayStation has just really clapped the Xbox this go around. I don't think it's ever been that one-sided, because I even think about when like the 360 came out. The 360 was like the console, but it also came out after the PS2.
PS2 is
Right?
the goated one.
Or no, did it come out before? It was
I
after
don't know the release
PS1.
dates on them.
So what I think what you're like talking about here, Jared, is so you had the original Xbox was
Mhm.
like around the time of the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the PS2 is goated, right?
Yeah,
Absolute
absolutely.
goated console. The Xbox 360 was a better overall console than the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in terms of like hardware or whatever, but like just in games
Well,
and
popularity, I think.
I
just in
think-
general.
popularity, just everything, the Xbox 360 absolutely was a better console than the PlayStation 3, and in my personal opinion, but I think a lot of people would agree with me on that one.
I
And
think
then
that was
as soon as
definitely
you
the
get to
rule of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the PS4 and PS5 have really outshined, the Xbox
Yeah.
One.
Like ever since the Xbox 360, you really don't hear much about the Xbox to that level.
Well, it also has to deal with Microsoft absolutely dropping the ball on their flagship titles too.
I was gonna say
Looking
it's
at you,
funny
Halo
because
Infinite.
like you think of Halo, Destiny, and all those other games, like there's a lot of games that Xbox had on the 360, which I honestly don't agree with.
But wasn't God of War
I-
also an exclusive there?
No,
That's PlayStation
PlayStation
exclusive.
exclusive.
Oh wait, Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Oh,
I
dude, that was in
think
All
that-
Stars. I'm an idiot.
I think that the titles that people were really happy about with the 360 weren't titles that like were enticing to me. Part of that's because I
Right.
played them after their time,
Yeah.
and it's hard to compare it without getting its like current iteration with the current games that are out. I'm just like,
Right.
there's like 1,000 games that do this better.
Also, just how you were as
so-
a kid, like you
and
just
the-
were
yeah.
accepting more.
And yeah, and also I just feel like the PlayStation IPs that I think about, I was just so much more attached to. Like I think of Metal Gear Solid, I think of Final Fantasy, which was not on the Xbox.
Nope.
I think of Ratchet and Clank, which was not on the Xbox for a while. I don't think it ever was. I think
not
of
sure.
Jack and Daxter, which I don't recall being on the Xbox either. Crash, like I don't recall any of those games, and those are like prime staple PlayStation classics. And if you think
Yeah.
about like the classic
Was
Xbox games,
BioShock?
it was on both. I'm pretty sure, right? Wasn't BioShock on both or no?
Because
No,
what
BioShock definitely was, because I remember Big Daddy on the Xbox 360 case. Like I'm actually
Wait, no, because
no, because he was in PlayStation
No,
All Stars.
I was saying the All Stars were
Yeah,
literally
yeah, yeah.
PlayStation
Yeah.
exclusives, right? So like
Yeah.
you had Infamous and all that too.
Right. And well, I mean, not even to get into like the PS3 iteration. I just feel like the 360, like when it came out, I think what it did was it transcended what was popular in terms of there was the multiplayer games like Call of Duty and shit like that was super popular, and it allowed a party experience that PlayStation just couldn't touch.
Oh,
But
yeah.
PlayStation had better foundational games. Like the experience on multiplayer was like the highlight of Xbox, because I think that was the first time that multiplayer was really achievable. Like I remember playing Battlefront 2 on the PS2 online. That was
Right.
something you could do, but it was
Right.
pretty dog shit.
Yeah.
It was not fun. There's no voice chat, there's nothing. And then when the
Right.
360 came out, they added those Xbox parties. They had
Yeah.
like they really had their achievement system, and
That even
Oh.
came before the 360, actually.
really
That was technically possible towards the end of the original Xbox's like lifespan.
Really?
It was
Okay.
it was a lot more difficult, but the 360 had it all integrated with it. Like, like it was just honestly, I agree with you. The multiplayer experience with the Xbox is just
It was also
Yeah,
like,
honestly, I really think it was literally just Halo that literally carried the console.
it was
like-
definitely
like
it was definitely Call of
carry the
Duty too.
360.
I'm telling you, it was Call of Duty as well, because part of the Xbox thing was that you could plug your mic straight into the Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Like that actually is huge for accessibility purposes, I feel like.
Yeah.
Whereas PlayStation was more on like buy the PlayStation headset. It's $100+.
right.
Whereas
And then
like
you're the only one in the lobby that bought one.
also you're like the only guy who has you're the only guy who has
Yeah.
a voice
Whereas
headset.
the Xbox headset came with the console. You got one with the console when you purchased
It-
it.
it made multiplayer accessible before it was really accessible to everyone. Whereas like now,
Yeah.
it's kind of standard to go get like your average Xbox player, your average console player, like they get their Turtle Beaches and shit like that.
Right.
Like I'll always stand by that. I've always thought PlayStation had better IPs, flat out. Xbox has some hard IPs that are all multiplayer based, like Halo and
Gears of War.
Gears of War.
Gears of
Like
War's a big
those
one.
two were so fucking huge from like a multiplayer standpoint, but the moment they made them accessible, like them going to PC almost takes it away because
Yeah.
it takes away the reason for the console. And then also just other platforms having accessibility to multiplayer the way we do now, like with Discord on the PC. I mean, chat in general with games is just integrated. Like if you think about Fortnite, like it's cross-platform chat.
Yeah.
So it's just everything that made the Xbox staying power so strong is just accessible everywhere else.
Yeah, and it's like they never innovated.
Absolutely,
Like,
no.
like that was their innovation. Like sitting in Halo 2, being able to talk to people was just like the fucking craziest thing because it had never really been done before, right? And then they just never did anything else with it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like Microsoft really, in terms of the console wars, the past probably almost 10 years or so now, has just been taking L's left and right.
And the other thing too is I think that now we're in the new generation consoles. I think that one of their issues is not being able to keep up with Sony from a software hardware perspective. In terms
Yeah.
of like Sony really packs powerful hardware in their consoles. And Xbox does too, but not to the same level. So I feel like
Yeah.
now it's more blaring because it's like, well, what's the reason to get Xbox besides Game Pass? Like that's the biggest selling point for Xbox at this point. And it's something you could also still get on your PC. So it's again, which isn't a
Right.
bad thing because they have Windows. I get it,
Yeah.
but they don't own the market on PC, whereas like Steam is the major
It's-
figurehead on Steam.
Or Epic
It-
Games, or
It's
like,
kind of
there's a
crazy
bunch
because
of
I'm pretty
other-
sure I've turned
Epic
into
Games.
I'm pretty sure I've turned into a complete like PC Master Race person because it's like I don't really care for consoles at all, like at all anymore. When I used
Yeah.
to, we used to game on those literally all the time. That's where we gamed. And all
It's
that.
just it feels limiting
You
to
like,
me.
even the exclusive stuff, like I want to play like Spider-Man and stuff like that. Like even before it came to PC. Actually, did it come to PC yet?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah. I was gonna say okay. What's it called? Like even like there aren't even any games that come out that make me want to get a console because it's like whenever I play a console game now, I'd just rather play this on my PC.
Yeah.
Like the input delay, the input lag, and things of that nature, like they really bug me to that level. I feel like.
Well, I feel like the issues with console, like there are issues of yesteryear, so to speak. Like, why do I have input lag to this degree? When Nick and I would go to Rocket League tournaments and we're playing
Oh
on
my
console,
god, man.
how is it almost a
Oh
full
my
second of
God.
input lag in comparison to
Yeah.
my PC? On top of that, I'm capped at 60 frames, whereas on my PC I push 240. I could probably push like 500 in Rocket League for all I know. But
Yeah.
like, what's the benefit for me besides accessibility? So like, I don't know if maybe that's just because we're older now. I think that's a factor, and we all have like our own money and things like that.
I mean, yeah, price point, right?
Right.
Like, it's easier to buy a $400 or $500 console than
Cost
spend
of-
$1,500 on a
Yeah.
PC.
Yeah,
you
cost
know.
of entry, like
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
but
100%.
But I feel like you can still have a $400, $500 PC even in today's market and get a better experience. So it's like, why? Like in every
Yeah.
aspect, I just think why. There's been times where I thought about getting a PS5, but every exclusive I'm excited about is now on PC.
Yeah.
So
I also think
That's not true.
too,
Ragnarok's not released yet.
like on top of getting a $500 PC, you also got to get a mouse, you got to get all the other,
All the peripherals.
keyboard,
and-
all the peripherals. Like it even if you can get one for $500, like the true PC experience, you're not gonna get for that price.
Well, I would
You're not-
also.
I would argue you're not going to get like it's not worth your money to get a $500 PC,
Yeah.
in my personal opinion. Whereas like it's definitely worth your money to get a $500 PS5
Yeah,
You know.
no, I'm there. I definitely feel like a
Well, I
$500
think that's what's
PC.
keeping it alive for
Well,
sure.
well, I
Yeah.
mean, at the end
Oh,
of the day,
absolutely.
a $500 PC also has $500 PC problems. Like, it's
Right.
not going to last the 6+ years that a console will. It's not going to be able to play those games. It's still going to be able to play Riot games, which is why they're so popular. You can
Right.
play that shit on your fucking toaster
On a
for all we
MacBook
know.
Pro.
Yeah, like, um, but I feel like that experience is also different. I think the biggest thing is like longevity and also the learning curve of a PC. Part of the console is it being a casual experience. You log
Yeah.
in, it's just like your phone. It's just like playing
Yeah.
an app on your phone. It works the exact same way. Whereas on your PC, because it's so customizable and because it's so free for you to do whatever you want, there's a bit of a learning curve to it. And if you
Yeah.
have it has learning curve issues where you can't just easily solve the issue. The Xbox is like turn it off, turn it back on. The issue's probably gone.
Right.
But I will say that for the PC, I definitely feel like buying all the peripherals is still a major part, especially when you think of like the Xbox Elite controller, the headset, like all those things people are still buying. Like the average
Yeah.
Xbox consumer doesn't just get the Xbox and the game and they're done. They get the Xbox,
Right.
the game, they get the super nice controller, they get the super nice headset. Like
Yeah.
all those are
What is the Elite controller? I actually don't know about the Xbox Elite controller.
it allows you to
So
swap out. Could you? Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So the Elite controller, it comes with like customizable paddles that you can map, your buttons to. It's essentially adding almost kind of like a keyboard to your controller, right? Like you're able to map things differently. It comes with interchangeable analog sticks, so they have like different heights, different
That's done on the
feels.
controller side, not on the console side. Like the
Yeah.
whole the key mapping.
Right. Yeah. So that has strictly to do with the controller. So
Why
like
don't they
people
just
like
do that on the console side to like allow you to map your controllers?
Well, no, you do map it in the console.
it's giving you extra
You
buttons to
can,
map to.
yeah, like for an example, if you want like a different stick, you throw that in there, like just different, like you said, paddles and things like that. It's like the feeling. Sean has one, and we've used it at his house, or he's shown it to us.
Yeah.
Nick, do you not have one?
I had one, but I sold it. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
I don't have one anymore. But
yeah, it just
um,
feels like that's more of the normal now. Whereas like you're spending 120 on a controller, you're spending 100 plus on a headset.
yeah.
So the cost of entry is still similar. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I'll agree that for like the staying power and having a relevant PC, like $1,000 is more of where you would need to be at to match a console. Like I
Right.
said, and you still have all those other issues that you could potentially run into. So it's definitely more.
I would argue
Oh,
though that the library of things that you can access on a PC is infinitely more
well,
valuable.
I was gonna ask about that too. Like as far as like networking on the PC and stuff like that. Do they have that on like consoles? As far as like
Networking.
building communities and things like that. Like you have Discord on PC where you build communities and things of that nature, or just like access to
Um,
social network to communicate with
I
people.
I mean,
Outside of the game itself, do they have that on
Yeah.
consoles?
So I know Xbox recently just launched like Discord on Xbox, right? So you're able to join, certain Discords, and this is something I think they were very late on doing. Think about how long people have been using like Skype on PC. Like,
Right.
Discord has been around on PC for almost probably a decade now, actually. It's been a very long time that
Been
Discord's
a
been
hot minute, yeah. It's actually
Yeah.
been like easily 8 years that I can think of off
Yeah.
the top of my head. So yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. So it's been a while that Discord's been accessible, and just recently, I think within the last year, Xbox has put out like the ability to use Discord. And I mean, they always had like, party chat or whatever, but you had to be like friends with people. You had to have a whole friends list
Yeah, you
of
basically
people.
access them through the game, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
I remember it
So
being.
yeah, you could like go on somebody's like player card or player profile in the game lobby, and then click the add friend or view their profile, and then invite them to parties that way. And for the time, during the Xbox 360 days,
Send me hate
it
mail,
was
all that.
well, yeah, but that was like intuitive. Like that was cool. It's like that was the brand new thing. But then it never evolved over.
Right.
And when the Xbox One released, holy shit, was it terrible? Their party
The
system
X-Bone.
was
Dude,
oh my god.
I honestly
It
think
was
everything
terrible.
about the Xbox was bad. Like the controller is
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Yeah.
It is. So, I remember there's one game I remember playing, Chris, and it was actually because it was Troy's Xbox. I know, Altadrea and Dad are over here like, oh, they're gonna listen to this back. It's like our sister's like ex man or whatever, right?
Okay.
But I was playing on his Xbox and I was playing this Wolverine game. And I just remember how bad I was. Like, God, like I'd never used an Xbox before. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, like it just the controller felt so
Yeah.
bad. Just the random, like they had the different buttons, and I was just like, what is this? And I'm not a fan of the Xbox like controllers in general, though, as PS5 was always a PS3,
Well,
whatever.
the DualShock controller's just been it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Like I even got Nick to switch to a DualShock. I was like, bro, you got to try the PS4 controller, and then now he's on the PS5. So it's like,
PS5 one. I mean, I
they,
still have my,
I think that
Xbox
gross,
controllers, but
gross.
you know.
Get that out of here.
He
But
looks so
Well,
bulky in
okay, well,
comparison.
hold on. I got the the PS4
A
controller.
4.
I actually think the
Right, where-
PS4 controller is the best controller, like number one to me, for sure.
No, dude, Nintendo 64.
Okay. Anyway, I'm not even gonna entertain that topic any further. So
It's
we're
awful.
just gonna jump to the next thing.
It's terrible.
Oh no, Nintendo.
No.
Just the
No.
Nintendo 64 had like it was like a trident, man.
Stop.
It, like you don't
No.
even know where to put your hands.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it's like
Every time-
literally, it's so weird that there was like 5 different techniques of holding it.
yeah.
I just
You know,
wonder.
the
I just
steering wheel or,
do you know like the actual way it was supposed to be held? Is there like a confirmed, like when we were designing it, this is the vision? Because I don't
Well-
understand the trident. Like,
Well, I'm pretty sure it was like you're supposed to hold the middle stick. Like that's the legit thing because the stick was right above the middle, right?
That's
Was
where
it-
that's where the analog was in the
Yeah.
middle, like
no,
prong,
I understand.
guess.
Was it meant for you to be able to be like, boom, I'm holding it this way, ooh, and then you like switch, and now like was that the intention? And then you're like, ooh,
You're supposed to completely
Well,
claw the front.
because it's basically
and
like
use
this
leaning
with
of your
just an
hand.
extra.
Actually, you know what? Thinking about it, because on the left-hand side of it was the D-pad,
right.
and it had the same function as the analog stick. It just was a D-pad. So a lot of games that you used like the analog to move, you could also just use the D-pad if you were more comfortable with that.
Mm.
I wonder, was
So-
it actually comfortable like holding the middle and using the stick
Yeah.
that way?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
because that's probably what the idea was. Like, if you're D-pad, you can hold this side. If you're analog, then you can just.
It's
hold
one of
the
those things
middle.
of like,
Right.
okay, boom, here's your stick, but then if you want D-pad, you just like adjust the grip, and you're over
Yeah.
here now.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it
just
had
seems,
its own kind of grip, anyways. It was,
Right.
you
yeah,
know,
it's definitely that's definitely a take, Nick, and we're gonna move past it because it's a terrible
it was,
take.
it was a
Um,
lie. That's
I-
what we
I
call
know.
a Jose take.
Oh, we gotta get him on the podcast at some point.
We
We gotta
do.
get Jose on here. But one of the
It's a
things I
bad
actually
take.
want to talk to you guys about was we previously talked about this. This was a game Sean was excited about that he kind of mentioned a couple weeks back before the new year. It was a game called High on Life. And it's funny because this game was in the news because the founder, who's also like the creator of Rick and Morty, and who does like 90% of the voices in that show, is completely not associated any longer because he
Yeah.
has like felony domestic abuse charges. I don't even know what you need to do to get a felony domestic abuse charge. Like I don't even know what that looks like.
Beat the shit out of your wife.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't want to see what the person looks like either. So.
But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like, what degree do you have to like fuck someone up? And it was crazy because this game was like so highly received, and it's like, damn, that sucks because I feel like it was.
That's because Rick and Morty is fucking huge.
Yeah. Well, you know what's
People love that.
crazy is that like I think Adult Swim is like contracted to continue pushing out Rick and Morty episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, like they can't get around. They can't cancel the show basically.
I don't think they even want to though, because there's still a whole cast and crew, and with the way the show is,
Yeah.
it's so easy for them to continue by just like, oh, in this universe, Rick and Morty sound like this, like the
Sure. they
by
could do
like the
something like that, yeah.
multiversal type of deal with that.
Or
the way
they'll
that
just
show
take
is.
approach the other shows do and just like change the voice and not say anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But the reason I bring it up is because I feel like that game was one of the. It's like the opposite of Forspoken. It was a game that didn't have a lot of media traction. It was very pretty. The biggest media traction it had was, hey, the guy who voices Morty is creating this
Yeah.
game. Like that was the
Right.
biggest media traction it had. But it was very well received, and one of the things that was so impressive about it was the way they went about the game development was more of an old school way where there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs, and it was just about player experience. The game was really only 6 hours long. Like that's
Yeah.
it. But it still had positive reviews because the depth of the content and all the extra little things that they added in there. Like
Right.
there's a ton of even like TikToks and stuff of people finding different things in the game, or even there's a movie theater in the game, and people will
So you
sit
can
in
watch
there
legitimate
and
movies.
watch full movies in this fake movie theater. Not even
Huh.
VR. So,
Interesting. How does that
but
even work? Like,
it's essentially just an MP4 playing. Like, I don't know what movies they have available, right?
Yeah.
But
I
at
don't
the
know
end
how
of the day,
how the right side of that works, like with like being able to show those.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
it
is that a
it could
thing?
just be a flat fee of like, hey, we're gonna have this in our game. Like I said, I don't know what content are actually in those movies. Like, is it like blockbuster movies? Probably not, right? Is it indie films? Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's just
But
all his stuff.
I think I think what sucks about it is it sucks for gaming because that was a game that showed what RPGs could be and kind of what they need to be going forward. Especially in the day and age of us having um, early access titles that are incomplete, and it was like, hey, it's a full game. It's only 6 hours. It is what it is, but
Yeah.
it's a jam packed 6 hours that people are super happy with.
Right.
And it was like, what could this build into? Whereas now we're probably never gonna go down that path.
Yeah.
It's more annoying that this just keeps happening. It's like, this game blows up because of this person or this developer or this streamer gets so big, and then it just comes out like, oh hey, actually I'm a piece of shit. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah. Well,
oh well, that sucks because your content was actually decent. Like,
yeah. And one of the other things I mentioned last week too was, while we were on hiatus or what have you, we had the whole like Mizkif thing, and there's been a lot of big streamers who have been caught up with literal crimes.
right.
And but that's one of the things that I struggle with myself is like, what does the line look like, and who decides what the line is? Because the reason why I bring that up is there's been like
What line
Rocket
are we
League,
talking about?
the moral compass line. So they're like, I'm gonna. This is a bit of a controversial topic right now in Rocket League, like a very very controversial. Um, so just prefacing that now. There's a Rocket League streamer who's French and lives in France, and he admitted on stream to having sex with a 14-year-old girl. But in France, the age of consent is 14. Okay?
Right.
Now, my thing is, I feel like it's hard to hold people accountable from different cultures and different spheres of influence and different
Sure.
parts of the world
Most
on
definitely.
Western ideals. And recently, a bunch of big content creators have been kind of like throwing them under the bus, which I'm cool with doing that, to be honest. But I just don't know what it opens to, and like I said, who decides what that line is.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things of, this guy's a piece of shit, but I don't know if we should be going and witch hunting him. Do I agree with his ideals? No. Do I agree with his actions? No. But I feel like it's not for me to hold him up to
Was that like
Western.
a much older guy or something? Is that
He's like 18. Or like
Yeah.
20.
I
He
mean,
might be like
I,
20, but even still, like
yeah. Well, and I get what you're saying too. Is like we're holding him to our standards, right? In America or Western civilization, and not that France isn't kind of technically part of Western civilization, but like they have different laws there, right? And for whatever reason, like I think especially people have a really hard time uh looking at situations with nuance, right?
yeah.
Especially when you come to like the internet mafia, right? Like the Twitter mob or whoever. Like they have a really, really hard time separating what you're looking at face value versus what may have actually happened or what may actually be going on, right? So in a situation like that, like without without knowing his age, I hear, oh, he's having sex with a 14-year-old girl, I
Yeah.
automatically assume that's bad.
Yeah.
Right.
For all I know, he could have been a 16-year-old streamer,
Yeah.
And then in that case, oh, okay, well that makes it a little bit different, but still she's 14. But then you hear, oh, well in France, the age of consent is
And
14.
then you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
And-
well, right. That's a whole other like can of worms there, and you're just kind of like, okay, well, if you're able to break it down like that and look at situations with that type of nuance, then
Well,
it makes it so much easier to like,
well,
well, it's like with that
navigate.
idea, it's like now you're like, so if it was in the U.S. and this person had sex with an 18-year-old, they just be like, they just had sex with an 18-year-old, and like it sounds like in France's culture that's what it is. Oh, he had sex with a 14-year-old.
Yeah,
yeah,
mean-
right. But
Right. So
and-
no, I get why you're asking the question. That's why it's just like they grew up different than us. I don't know, like.
and that's what I'm getting at. Is like, here's the thing: I would never want to interact with this person. I wouldn't want anything to do with them. But again, I just don't know like where, especially like on the internet, where I feel like this is a part of gaming now, almost to where every week we have some new like scandal of some sort, and it doesn't feel like gaming news, but it's like the Blizzard shit. We have
Yeah.
this whole
But
thing.
you
with
we're
this dude
talking about a
abusing-
streamer, like,
right. Like every single like huge streamers being involved in these different cases, which is just like that's life, right? Like at the end of the
I mean,
day, it's
it's like they're just new age celebrities,
absolutely
I think the biggest thing that I could think of is like O.J. Simpson, right?
yeah.
Like he was a football player. He wasn't a celebrity. He was just a professional football player. And what happened when this, one of the best football players at the time, is now being investigated for murdering his wife?
Yep.
Right? What does the media do? They blow it up, they make a narrative out of it, they build a story, and they profit off of it most likely.
Yeah.
Right? And now these same media outlets, whether it be, the news or YouTube or Twitch, Facebook, whatever, they're going to do the exact same thing with these people that have followings, with these people that are popular and are, internet celebrities. So in all actuality, I this may be different for like the rest of the world, because I feel like this has been going on in America since the 80s probably, or even
Yeah.
before then, right? Whereas now people in other countries that were aren't as big as America or whatever, like now they're more popular just because they're good at a video game, and they're just normal people, right?
Right.
They're just normal people that happen to be good at a video game and gathered a following and made a career out of it, and now their entire life is in the limelight.
Yep. Yeah, I think my biggest thing is like, one, I just want to be clear for anyone watching or listening at home, is like, I don't agree with that sentiment. I don't.
Yeah, we
agree with his
don't support
actions.
that.
I'm not
God, no.
defending his actions in
No.
any way. I'm just more defending, or I
We're
wouldn't
trying
even
to
say
understand.
defending.
We're trying to
I'm
understand.
striking the question of where is the line and who creates it. That's
Yeah,
really all it is, because
I feel
it's
like
it's not a crime in where he's at. So it's like, how do we possibly uphold him to that standard? And like I said, who creates this standard?
Well-
And especially because it wasn't like a media outlet who did this. It was members in the Rocket League community. Which I think the thing would be like, one, I'm cool if this guy's blackballed. Like, I fuck that guy, right? To me, he's a fucking predator, right? But it's also like, to have people go out and witch hunt him is a whole different issue, because it's almost like, if that is accepted in France, then like the bigger issue is that these countries just need to have better standards of what's lawful. I don't.
Yeah, I
that's
think
the can of worms.
I
That
think
we're
what
talking
makes
about.
it so weird and awkward is like it feels like it comes down to there is no right or wrong answer, and it comes down to the individuals that interact with him, and also like, so he's on like Twitch and stuff, right? Because he said he's a
Mhm.
streamer, so I'm assuming it's
Yeah.
Twitch. And it comes down to just that company itself, like who sets the standard, and it's like, well, in this regard, it would have to be Twitch, right?
Yeah.
Like as far
Right,
as like
but at the end of
his
the day-
platform, because what?
I mean, sorry, not to like cut you off, but like at the end of the day, Twitch is just a platform, realistically, and he didn't break any law, right? He's just happened to do something that a lot of people in our culture disagree with, right?
Right.
Whereas in his culture, his upbringing, his entire life, he's known that that's okay,
Yeah.
right? And I think what Jared's saying is it's like, how is that necessarily fair of these people in the
Oh,
Rocket
I'm not
League
saying I have
community?
the answer.
You
That's
know,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at is that
right?
there is
but,
no
like,
right or wrong answer.
Yeah, to go and demonize this guy who, granted, like you guys said, I think it's fucked up and he's a predator because she's 14 years
He's
old.
So-
14.
It's right, like it almost sounds like I'm playing devil's advocate here, but at the end of the day, he didn't do
Well,
anything wrong.
Well, it also comes down
Wrong.
to like, so what? Is the U.S. just gonna go and burn down like France now because of this?
Well, first of all, that would be in our thing. Like that would kind of be what we would do, though.
right. Like that's the approach that would happen. Like that's what comes
You're
next.
doing
is like,
something we don't like.
Yeah.
That's literally like our
Which is a
motto.
whole nother can
like,
of worms.
You know, so it wouldn't be out of our wheelhouse. And then people brought up the whole thing of like, well, in the Philippines, the age of consent's 12. What if it was a 12-year-old? He was like, well, that's cringe, right? You know, and
Oh, that's what he said about it?
That's
yeah,
the streamer
whatever.
response, Jesus
Yeah,
fucking
whatever,
Christ.
whatever the fuck that means, right? But I think at the end of the day, it shows that he doesn't agree with that one. But
Yeah.
because culturally for him, 14
because it's
is
14.
the age, right?
Yeah.
So it just shows that like some of that stuff is so hard to ingrain in people when it's technically like it's indoctrined in him that that's fine. Like,
Well, okay,
and I don't
also,
know how the
We're
general
talking
public
cross
feels.
civilization things.
Right,
I just kind
yeah.
of thought of this too, because so a lot of places here, like the age of consent is like 16,
Yeah.
right? There's still laws forbidding 18-year-olds from being with 16-year-olds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know the laws in France. I'm not a French citizen. I never studied France law. I
Oh,
don't
you
know if there
should've.
are laws like that. I mean, maybe I should have, but there I think is what people are having like a problem with, right?
Yeah.
Is we know, if you're 18 years old, you shouldn't be having sex with 16-year-olds. Like that's very commonly accepted in our culture here, and we, like I said, we have laws that say that. So maybe that's where people are going, what the fuck, dude? Like maybe you shouldn't do that, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think we understand that side of it.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. We're all like, one, what a fucking sicko.
And it's just like,
but
we get to the point where it's just like, fuck, is it really like that in France?
yeah, I never knew that. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that sounds like a United Arab Emirates type of deal, not like like a Pakistan deal, like a Middle East type of deal,
Yeah.
a Mongolia, like a Asian Middle East type of, that seems like
Right.
that type of thing.
Yeah, we're
I
getting
never-
all into like the controversy,
The
like, cultural
geopolitical,
appropriation and all this shit now. Like,
yeah,
oh god.
we don't need to bring up that.
No, I'm literally just saying like in other parts of the
No,
world,
yeah,
there's law like women can't drive in certain places. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
so that's like what the law is. Whether or not we agree with it's not for us to agree
Mexico,
with.
you can drink at 16.
Right. Nick
Here,
knows
you can't
that.
drink till you're 21. I do know that because I drank in Mexico when I was
But-
16.
But truly, I mean, these
Well-
stories, and that's kind of makes it hard. Is like these stories are almost ingrained with gaming culture because they just happen so frequently. Because I think
Well,
they just
they're
like
part of the
clicks.
gaming culture. Yeah.
Well, I feel like gaming is such a polarizing thing, and because gaming was like the outcast. Like if you think of a lot of these streamers that came up, like I watch Anthony Padilla, and he interviews a lot of streamers. It's very interesting, and I actually was listening to Valkyrie's episode this morning. I'll just listen to it like when I drive, just because I don't always listen to music.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how like she was bullied in school, she's an outcast, whatever. But like by everyone's standards, she's like some hot, super cool chick, right?
Right.
And I feel like because that's the atmosphere that gaming's in, where people were outcasted for such a long time, gaming was never cool. You have such polarizing figures and people who are so like intolerable in terms of like their beliefs. They're so like it's very like left wing, they're left leaning in terms of like
it's obvious
the-
they haven't experienced the
social.
world.
well, it's just like the social aspect of it is like you have to agree with my social stance or you're wrong.
Yeah.
So I feel like it makes the territory very hard. And it's even like when we talked about in previous episodes where gambling was such a big scandal on Twitch, and I'm like, just don't watch it. Well, there's kids watching. I'm like, so have their parents. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know if maybe
That's like a foreign concept to people.
yeah, I don't know if it's because people just don't expect essentially people look at gaming to be this model thing where like, oh, these streamers are model civilians. It's like, how? They just play a game, and like Nick said, they happen to be good at it, or they happen to be entertaining. I don't look at comedians, entertainers, actors in any different light because they're just people who are popular for a craft. They have no moral compass that is higher than mine.
Right.
Well, it's like Nick said, it's just the modernization of it, right? And like because gaming's the mainstream thing now.
Yeah.
Because the industry's done nothing but grow the entire time.
Right.
So it's just that's the celebrity spotlight.
That's
It's
like-
just how it is.
that's like
It's
the way
they're-
it
They're held
goes.
to that standard.
And it sucks that I feel like it takes away from a lot of the good things about it. And one of the things I was going to talk about, there's a guy on YouTube, his name is Actman. He actually posted a video. Huh?
He got demonetized.
Yeah, so he posted a video about how the news hates gamers or gaming as a whole with the way it demonizes things. Like, for an example, there'll be like some mass shooting that happens. They'll be like, well, it shows that on his Xbox he had GTA 5 in there, a game where people
this is the
murder
GTA
and steal
speak right here.
cars. And
Remember, no Russian.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
and it's so funny to me because I'm like, have you guys never read a book, watched a movie, seen a play? Like, every form of entertainment has the same subject matter, but it's funny that like the news highlights gaming in the worst possible way. Like, which is probably true with how everything kind of adapts. Like, this new form of entertainment always gets villainized to start, and how it's like the devil.
Because it's spreading like wildfire, so it's like
Yeah.
it's got to be bad.
Yeah, it's crazy because like in the video it goes over like these people. the example the news gave is just so out of touch. They were like, yeah, so we show an example to these parents to show them what gaming could potentially do. And he's like, so I'm in the house and the kids are upstairs with their mom and we go on PictoChat. You remember the fucking DS? They're like, we go on the DS and they share their address. And it's like, yeah, because they met you 5 minutes ago and you're trustworthy. They're on camera. They've been predispositioned to trust you. Also, it's PictoChat. Dude, you know what PictoChat was for? Putting an anonymous message like, I have a crush on so-and-so. All right? Yeah. That's what PictoChat, the school field trips.
Scribbling your screen black just for funsies.
Like, do you know what PictoChat is, Quakers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just like...
And it also works in like an area that's like this big. It's like 10 feet.
So you
like,
really have to be sitting next to the person that you're doing.
And it's so funny because they're so out of touch that like that was the example that they gave to how like, now mind you, I think gaming and being on the internet is very dangerous for kids when they're not monitored, right?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 examples you could give, and PictoChat might be on the list of the worst. Like, yeah, you have to worry about, and it was another one. Like, these examples were ludicrous. I'll actually link the video below in the description, and I'll also send it to you guys so you can watch it. But the other example was the NPC in Animal Crossing, because he asks you for like, it's like a fetch quest where he's like, bring me these things. You're like, what if he was a predator who asked for pictures?
What?
But this is like
what news team was this?
But
what
this is
news
like
team was
this is like the nightly news. Like I said, there's 1,000 examples of how it's dangerous, right? Like there's 1,000, like getting access to your computer, to your webcam. They can see you when you're not watching. They can dox. There's so many ways. They're just flat out.
They can do everything that the government does.
Flat out, people messaging your kids on Facebook. They're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these social media platforms. TikTok is like a cesspool of predators, right? And they're like, we're going to land on rated E for everyone, Animal Crossing. It's just, dude, I was crying laughing, and I'm like actually crying laughing now because the examples are just so outlandish. Like, and it just shows, and then their biggest thing is like, what parents need to do is watch their kids, and it's like,
oh my god. No
what
fucking
parents
way.
need to do is parent.
It's like how is the nightly news? The headline is like, parents have to wait for it at 9. At 9 they're like, today parents will actually need to parent for once, and then everyone's like, holy shit. But it's just like
Oh
it
my
truly
God.
highlights the relationship between gaming and the media. Even like during Fortnite, um, it even had one of this kid who got scammed on RuneScape. Like he,
Dude.
it, it's just the subject matter they used was just the most innocent subject matter they could have used. Like in this game, he fishes up this item and it's 1,000 coins. This hacker stole all of it, and they're like asking the kid, "How do you feel about it?" He's like, "Bad."
There was actually a big thing that happened in like the early 2000s with RuneScape. This guy's name is Josh Pillalt. He was swatted for sending death threats over RuneScape,
Oh, really?
and he spent years in jail
5 years.
over this. Yes,
I actually know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
for like
I
for the
actually,
death threats.
actually,
Yep,
I
yep.
think he does mention that in the video as well.
yeah. Maybe he does, and yeah, the guy's got a YouTube channel now that talked about like his whole experience and everything like that. Like, it's just wild that this has been going on since then. Actually, it's not even
Yeah.
really kind of a new thing, but it's definitely exploded. With how much more popular gaming has become, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
like it's just wild to think that you know that type of stuff leads to that, right?
What I will say was there was like he also mentions like this woman on the news who was like the most sensible person they could have found because they're like, "How do you feel about your son playing Fortnite?" She's like, "Well, I don't think it's a bad thing if we monitor it." They're like, "But what about all the killing and all that?" She's like, "Well, it's like a way for him to decompress and blah blah blah, meet
Every
people
time
and
she answers,
network."
they're like, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!"
They're like, "Fuck, the narrative's not
The
working." My
Oh no!
narrative.
Narrative, it's broken.
It's broken. But it was just so funny because she was just such a sensible person who was just like thinking about it so pragmatically that they were
Yeah.
just like, "Are you sure?" And it's like, "Yeah, because it's like everything else, you know."
Jim, you told me these people didn't exist. Why the fuck did you have me interview her?
They're like, it's like that part in 21 Jump Street. Your argument just collapsed upon itself. So, but it's just funny, like I said, just goes over that sort of relationship and how bad the light is painted for gaming. I mean, we all saw it with like, oh, gaming addiction, this, that, and the other. Like, I remember years ago there was the guy who played WoW for
I
54
was
hours
gonna say,
straight.
literally every
it's
WoW
just-
player.
And
Yeah.
my thing with it is like these examples are always the most extreme examples. And with the thing with
Right.
extreme examples is they're the easiest to like debunk, disprove, discredit. So it just doesn't
Well,
actually do anything.
They're an extreme for a
And-
reason.
and not to mention too, like how is gaming any different than any other type of consumption of like entertainment, right?
That's what's
Like,
so funny to me.
like what's the difference between sitting there and rating and WoW for 6 hours or watching an entire season of a show on Netflix in one
The
sitting?
difference, Nick, is back in my day we didn't fucking do that.
I mean, that's fair,
Yo,
right?
you know what the difference is? I get skills from playing video games. I don't get
I
skills
was
from
gonna say too, right? WoW is actually, engaging, or gaming in general is more engaging, and your brain is working. You're doing things. You're thinking.
There-
You're having to problem solve. You're doing all these other things. Whereas like, if you're just watching a show, like yeah, you have to pay attention, and you're gonna get entertainment out of it. But like there's just so much more that goes on into gaming. Is I don't understand why it's so demonized.
Right.
Well, it's
And-
just like
Yeah.
different types,
Yeah.
because when you're watching a movie or watching anything like a show or something, depending on the show you're watching, you can also develop different, mental skills or, even like you said, problem solving if you're like watching what's it called, like detective shows and things of that
Criminal
nature, or like
Minds or
and just
something.
learning things about the world in that way. Not, I mean,
Yeah.
you shouldn't always take it that, but there's different skills that you develop from the entertainments.
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with like pattern recognition, all the things that Nick talked about. Your cognitive ability is being stimulated, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about entertainment as a whole, like I think the thing that gaming has that other things don't is let's talk about CTE, right? You watch an NFL game, the best of the best. These guys have CTE, like killing their wives, killing themselves, severe mental depression, just mental deterioration on every level for playing a game, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Whereas like, and I know that those industries recognize how gaming is just another form, but the
Yeah.
masses and for the people who are a little bit older, they do vilify it. They're like, Well, it's no different than like we'll go to Rand's, my girlfriend, her parents' house or her family's house, and they're like, I just don't get how they watch. Like they're talking about her like cousins. I don't get how they watch these people play games. Football is literally on the TV.
You're
It
literally
is
watching them play a
literally
game.
on the
Right.
TV, and they're like, I just don't get how you can watch another person play a game. And they're like,
Yeah.
why don't you just play? I'm like, why don't you throw a football? Well, I can't throw it
Right.
like that. And you can't snap 180 degrees to someone's head like Shroud can either. Like
But you'll go bet thousands of fucking dollars on it.
you like these motherfuckers will watch World Series of Poker and then be like, what? How? Like, bruh, like it's literally the same thing. I don't actually understand. Like I've said it before. I hope I never get to that point where I can't make simple parallels between forms of entertainment. Like holy shit.
Right.
It's just not that hard because it's like, guys, there's evolutions to stuff. We used to just watch people kill each other for fun, like, and we
Yeah.
technically still do it now. Like we watch the UFC or we watch that new. Have you guys seen that slapping?
Oh,
Like the UFC slap
Oh,
thing?
I mean that's not new.
Yeah.
It's just like becoming mainstream attraction.
Well, it's just
Honestly,
that
I
Dana
think
White started one.
I want to say it became mainstream because of fucking Moist Critical. I swear to God.
Well,
It could be.
That's honestly how huge that guy is.
Yeah.
And like
I mean,
he got into it after watching one video.
yeah.
well, I mean, the thing is that he posts a video, he gets 1 million views. So anything he does, I think it definitely garners a ton of attraction. I mean, just think of when he did that Halo challenge or any challenge he does for a game. He
Oh, yeah.
pulls 1 million views no matter what he talks about, and he'll just bring random things up. So his stamp on something is good, but I'll say that they came out with that show. It's like I forgot, like slap. Excuse me. They came out with some slap like Dana White did.
I didn't
And
know he did that.
He's actually
Yeah.
the head of it. He started his own organization that's different from the one that Moist Critical was watching, and people were blaming Charlie Moist Critical for like the regulations and stuff of the slap contest that Dana White made, and he had to put out a video where he's like, guys, like basically like I don't agree with this either because essentially they're just putting people in the worst possible positions. Like the other slap contest has like very distinct rules for like safety and stuff. This
Right.
slap contest, this girl gets knocked out, like literally knocked out.
Yeah.
She like, and the refs and the doctors like allow her to get up, and she like falls on her head. Like, she
Jesus.
does like a roll forward, falling on her head,
Well-
and it's like just the fact that he had to put out a video. It goes towards again just people being so like the
They
internet
can't
is
look
so
at the nuance.
weaponized. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. They can't
Well-
go, oh, well, this clearly wasn't Moist Critical's fault.
Also,
No.
there's no thinking past this box. It's like,
Dude,
no, we stay
it's-
in the box.
it's literally
this
the
is the
L
box.
plus. It's the L plus ratio crowd. That's why.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
as much as people joke about stuff, I feel like, and maybe this is like a fucking boomer take, but I feel like that way of articulation is so terribly bad because it's not articulation in any form. Like
No.
Yeah,
It's-
there's no thought process at all.
L mans, W take.
Yeah.
Like
You're
it's
just you're looking to
so
be part of the
bad.
mass. That's all you're trying to do. Like
I mean-
you want to be part of the mob.
Yeah, that's definitely a generational thing too. I don't think that's really a boomer take because I think that's actually kind of a problem that
Yeah. That's
Zoomers.
just the reality of the
uh,
situation.
yeah, like right. It's one of those things where it's like people are so afraid of disagreeing with the majority of the people that they're just going to continue to pile on. It's like the whole cancel culture thing, right? It's like
yeah.
you see this thing happening and people are ready to almost cancel Moist Critical over something like this they had nothing to fucking do with.
Yeah.
People are like, this is your fault because you brought attention to it, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, I can't control what other people do.
Right. Well, like it's one of those things of it's the nuance, like you talked about, right? It's not
Yeah.
simple. Like it's breaking everything down into L or W's, right? L take, W take, L whatever, W this,
L plus
to
ratio.
where whenever something actually
Touch grass
happens,
kid.
people don't actually, and don't get me wrong, there's tons of people who do and will break this down and share nuance, but I think a lot of people look to content creators as those people to think for them in a way,
Yeah.
like Moist Critical or like Ludwig and things
It's
of that
their
nature.
idols, right? Like we said,
Right.
the new age celebrities.
Right. And I think it just makes them think of things as only being good or only being bad. To where in this situation, The thing is this slap competition is bad. Charlie watching slap competitions is not bad. His audience garnered attention towards the slap competition is probably true. It's his fault that these slap competitions are bad isn't correlated. You know what I mean? So it's like those
Right.
are all factors that play into that. So it's not as simple as like someone's at fault or it's just it's the nuance of everything involved. So
Yeah.
I feel like it does perpetuate that and make it harder or just worse because there's just no there's no substance there. It's just everything has to be a 0 or a 1, so to speak.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
it's got
that's
to be
just
the extremes. There's
that's
no in between.
yeah,
Right.
it's just not the way it works.
People, they only see it as there's two sides, like it's a binary, right?
Yeah.
That's all people can see. They can't see that, like, they can't see the greater picture, right?
Yep.
I, f-
Um
I feel like talking about this now just made me think about this. Like this almost plays into like an instant gratification type of deal, right? Like instant gratification in gaming is like you do this one thing, you get your reward like right away,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
You
yeah.
complete this quest, you get the reward, you're done, you move on.
Yeah.
And then in regards to like explaining in this situation is like they're getting their gratification because it's like they took their stance and they feel validated and righteous in their stance. It's like, oh yeah, this is how it is. Like you're talking about, there's only two sides, and it's like I'm on the right side, you're wrong.
Your comment there, I feel like, has really kind of encapsulated pretty much everything that we've talked about here. Like instant gratification with gaming and how, like the game we were talking about earlier, where there's only 6 minutes of or 6 hours of content. It's a good 6 hours of content that you don't necessarily get instant gratification from, because you get to go and find a bunch of different things. Whereas a lot of games in today's world is very much instant gratification. Like look at the whole battle royale thing, right? Like it's just you drop in, you get your kills, you loot, whatever, blah blah blah, and then you just repeat the cycle.
Yep.
And I think all of that is almost perpetuating a big problem in modern society, where people can't focus, or like, I don't know, like you said, everything's so instant gratification that they just have to like get their fix really quick. Like they're gonna take their stance, they're gonna say their piece, and then they don't give a shit about it after that, right?
Yeah,
Like they're
no,
not.
definitely. I definitely see that too because I actually think it's perpetuated even from the people who even the way we get news. Like if you think about news articles, it's also the instant gratification of like that big headline is meant to grab
Yep.
you and that's the story. Like
Yeah.
whatever details are involved, like no one actually cares about. But
Right.
whatever the headline is the story.
Yeah.
And it all I don't know if instant gratification is the best way to say it, but more of just looking for shortcuts in everyday life and everyday aspects, right? Like everything has to be a shortcut. Everything has to be like reduced down to these minute things, and we have to get a million of them to remain entertained or to even like garner our focus. You know what I mean? I think,
Yeah.
but I get what you mean, like towards calling it instant gratification because I think it is that in a way. I think the connotation to that phrase is just slightly
I think
different.
it just feeds into it.
Oh
You know,
yeah, no, for
like
100%.
that's more of what I was kind of getting at. Is it's like,
Yeah,
because gaming and all of the social media. Social media is, I think, one of the worst things for people's like mental health. I think it's terrible,
I think it's
personally.
proven to be as well, Nick. So I don't think you're off
You know,
basis there.
and I still indulge in social media. I still have Twitter. I still have a Facebook. I go on TikTok, but like I do it when I'm specifically looking for some sort of entertainment out of it, or if I'm just bored or something. Like I don't divulge into it like I know a lot of people do. They'll sit on TikTok for hours, or sit there talking to people on Twitter, all day. Like I just
Well,
that type of stuff, I think, is ruining a lot of people.
So
Millennials and Zoomers alike,
yeah.
and it's not good.
Well, this makes me come to another point on like social media. I can't believe we got on the point of talking about social media this much, but what's it
dude,
called?
it's
I
because it's
really
ingrained into gaming culture. It really
Yeah.
is.
Right,
You
it
know,
and I
is.
they
wonder
go
how
hand
you
in
guys
hand.
feel about this because I really hate when I see like this tweet or something that blew up and the person's like, "Oh, I don't have anything blah 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 to share," and they just start posting things for you to like follow them on,
I
right? And like
for the
follow or
time.
like to
Who?
go look at. I'm just like
Oh, they start posting like their Twitch or their
their Twitch
SoundCloud or
or
whatever.
they're like or
You
check
know,
check this out because the
yeah,
tweet got a bunch of like traction and shit. And I'm just
yeah,
like just seeing it just instantly annoys me and makes you not want to read the tweet like anymore or even look at
So
responses.
I definitely agree, and I definitely ignore those people because I'm like, listen, if I liked you enough, I check anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right.
And I
Like
and it's
and it
funny.
takes away from your original tweet because it's like it seems like you made this tweet just to try to grab attention.
yeah,
Well,
Like you sat in your room all day thinking of this tweet and it's like, oh, I got it. Let me post this.
yeah,
well, I think it's funny because I don't know of any big influencers who do that. You know what I mean?
I've done that,
Like
right?
that's not how people grow organically or how you garner an audience that's actually worth anything that has like staying power. And it's definitely a small creator thing of like a
yeah,
ooh, and it kind of goes towards what we're talking about. How can I shortcut success? Like how
right,
can I build this overnight? Which is just not a thing. Like it's just
yeah,
you know, and it's true. Like everyone has like, oh, follow my Twitter, follow my this, because they want that like, oh well, 100,000 people liked my tweet, so I'll get 100,000 followers. And
Right.
it's like, in
I'll give you guys
actuality,
another one tomorrow.
right? In actuality, you may get 1,000, you may get who knows 10,000 or 50,000, but the staying power of those things is not there. Like
yeah.
it has to be more organic and it can't be rushed because at the end of the day, I think people buy into the creator, not into the content.
Not
There
to
are
mention
definitely
the amount of
people,
Oh,
pressure
100%.
you put on yourself for this like fake thing that you created.
right?
Which you just going forward is just going to take away from what you're trying to put out.
I'm curious how you guys feel about this. It's funny you bring that up because there's been a bunch of people, and I mean, just as the industry grows, you'll see it more and more. But there's been a ton of people who have been retiring from YouTube or retiring from content creation of any kind because of those reasons. They spent so long trying to, you know, play towards an audience or do things towards an audience. Like someone I think of a lot is Hacksmith. Have you guys ever heard of him? Hacksmith Industries. He makes like Marvel oriented engineering things where like he made like a
I
lightsaber
love
for
watching
Star
his
Wars.
shit.
Oh,
He
okay.
made Thor's hammer that
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you
Okay.
open your
And
hand in
Iron
the
Man's
warehouse,
shield.
it like tracks
Yeah.
to your hand.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you would see him be like, wow, he's so successful. He put out a 12-minute long video about how he's been depressed for the past 4 years because he's not making content that makes him feel good, not doing any of these things. And it's like, that's all I feel like from what you're referring to, Nick, how like social media is almost a plague against us at times, and how it's all about garnering towards or just positioning yourself towards other people and also like taking those shortcuts like oh I know like if I post this thing instead of this thing I actually want to post that I'll
Yeah.
but there's no
Well,
fulfillment from it.
You'll get
I would say
backlash or
Yeah,
this
yeah,
this
yeah.
is another parallel to like the business world, right? Because
yeah.
like the biggest thing when you're bottom of the totem pole and like you think of how you're being treated is like I'm not just a number, right? And it's like the way he's talking right there is he's treating all his fans as the number because he's
Yeah.
worried about that popularity and all that. So it's like
Right. I
the
mean,
same thing
it's his
that's that's
livelihood, right?
right, and the same thing that's toxic in the business world is now showing that it's also toxic, in this world because it grew into a business.
Yeah.
So it's well, I mean, so what is your question to us of like, how we feel about what exactly
I
like?
mean, how do you guys feel about that as far as where social media is at? Like, how do you think to better approach that? Because at the end of the day, like Nick mentioned, it's his livelihood, right? So like you have to post things that people will click on. You have to sort of change things at times, but how do you garner fulfillment? Or is it one of those things where kind of that old notion of once something's a job, it's a job. It's no longer a passion. You know, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
Especially like we've talked about, like I would love to be more into content creation and make that more of a career path if I would be so lucky to do so. But it's definitely a concern I have where like I want to make XYZ thing, but I know it won't garner attention, it won't garner, it doesn't fit the image, it doesn't fit whatever other preconceived notions people have or what content they actually want.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I would like hate being a celebrity. Not that, hey, if the opportunity presents itself, I don't think I would turn it down. Like if I had an opportunity to better my life in that type of way, I think I would definitely do it. I would absolutely hate that feeling of like, oh, I've got to put out content that people want to watch, versus what I want to do. I wouldn't like that part of it, and I know
Mhm.
that for a fact. But I definitely think that, especially in the space of the internet, people don't see content creation as a job. Like
Yeah.
like, as from the viewer perspective, you're like, oh, Ninja's just playing Fortnite for 8 hours or 10
Yeah.
hours on a stream. Like, people don't understand that, like, because you're having to have this persona and be entertaining for that period of time and be engaging with people, like, they don't see it as a job when it 100% actually is a job,
Right.
right? Like, that's where this guy's, depression probably stemmed from, is the fact that, like, he doesn't feel that he can do the things that he wants to do because he got, big and famous for doing things that he liked to do. Because
Yeah.
now he can't go and do what he actually wants to go and do now. He's tired of doing that content
Right.
and wants to do something else, right? So I think, again, with it's nuance, right? People don't care. Like, people, they watch for the creator, but they don't care about the creator. They don't give a shit what they like to do in their free time. They
They
don't care about
the
their life.
creator is there selfishly, right? You're there to entertain me. The moment you stop, I'm gone.
Yeah, they're not thinking of the
You know.
creator as a person. They're just the creator. That's it.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you
100%.
this. I mean, do you think that there's? I mean, at that point, do you think? I think you did say it is a job, but do you think there's a way to avoid that as a creator? Like, how do you even balance that? Like, what?
I
Um, I think, realistically, you just have to not necessarily care about, the outcome. That's the only way that I see it
So it
possibly.
can't be. It can't be
I
the
I
sole reason you have
I
work,
will
so
say
to
I
speak.
feel like this is like it comes back to that the whole common thing of just like you need to be yourself. Like
Yeah.
you can't get caught up in the numbers and all that because you end up going down a road that you don't want to be a part of. And it's like that's not why you started this to begin with. It's kind of I see this in like when people talk about WoW, right? And where WoW came from and where it is now. Where it's like they were so worried about pleasing investors or just getting people to log on that they made ideas just to get people to log on. There's no passion or thought behind it or even what
Yeah.
they originally like approached it as. They were just worried about increasing the number instead of this is what I like, this is what I enjoy, which people fell in love with and joined because of.
Yeah,
Right.
I think there's becomes a certain point. There's like a turning point in content creation where there's a finite amount of people who will buy into you as a person. Like this is my belief. And as you rise and rise and rise, the level of people who buy into you versus buy into your content will shift. Where the people who buy into the content will heavily outweigh the people who buy into you as you become a
Right.
bigger creator. And I think what happens is chasing that number, chasing growth. Like growth is finite. You know what I mean? Especially when we're talking about like viewers, subscribers, metrics on a channel. There's only a finite number of people. There's only a finite number of users.
Right.
So you could grow, but the growth isn't real growth because you're growing on people who are just buying into content or bots or people who have two accounts or any of that stuff. Whereas the people who really buy into you is that smaller section. And I
Yeah.
feel like someone who encompasses that ideal that makes me think that truly is someone like Asmongold, someone we've talked about before.
Oh
I
yeah.
was literally thinking of the
Because
100%.
same person.
because what
I was
happens
gonna bring
is
him up.
like I'm me, right? I'm me, and now I'm my persona. Like I
Right.
because I passed this point where I have to cater towards this certain group that doesn't necessarily believe in me. I'm now my persona, and I have to be that persona in order to keep growing. Whereas I
Yeah.
feel like there's a certain point in the growth where I think it's just better to stay at that medium size because people will still believe in you and you get to be you
Well,
and you get the attention of you like Asmongold. Like he's been a neckbeard nerd and kind of what he talks about. Nothing ever gets too professional because it takes away from his audience. He's almost like the neckbeard spokesperson of the WoW sphere or
Yeah.
MMOs, and he doesn't lose sight of who he is or who his demographic is.
Right.
yeah, this is the whole Icarus story, right?
Flying too close to the sun. No,
Right. Yeah.
absolutely. It's like,
And I
and I
also I also think in some of these situations too is like when people have this explosion, they put almost their living situation in a place where they need to stay at where they are or grow more to have the livelihood that they want because of the explosion they saw, which puts an added pressure on when you see the numbers dropping, which just creates a downward spiral.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they moved to this big house and everything because, they're a big star now. And then they start going on a decline. It's like, well, now this is affecting you outside of work because like you got to move again. You're losing your car, you're losing this, all
Yeah.
those things like just spiral it out of control when it's like you could have taken what you had and just stayed here and just, coasted like you're talking about, that median that you
Yeah.
hit. And I like it just, it's
Yeah.
rough.
Well,
Yeah,
I think that. Oh, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like for me, I mean the thing that we're literally doing right now, like the podcast,
Yeah.
right? We're doing this for fun. Like
Yep.
ultimately, if the end goal is to grow it and be successful with it, like that's awesome, and I would obviously love for that to happen. But that's not gonna ever change the fact that I'm gonna get on here, whenever I'm invited or whenever, it doesn't matter, and just have fun with it
Yep.
because that's what it's about for me,
Yeah, we're just talking
right?
to the boys.
Right, like we would sit there and do this at 4 o'clock in the morning down in the kitchen,
Yeah.
you know? Like we would literally do this anyways, and we were just like, why don't we just throw it on the internet? Why not, right? And if it takes off, that's fucking cool. Great. But I love that this is like the specific type of content that we're doing because like we have to be ourselves here.
Yeah.
Like our opinions, our takes are our own. Like they don't come from anywhere else. Like I don't feel like, you know, I have an audience that I have to, side with or argue for or argue against or whatever. Like I'm just talking to you guys when
Right.
it comes to something like
Yeah.
this.
And I think that what happens, and like even like where I'm at, where I'm like, I know that in order to like, if we want to truly grow for ourselves, it's like there are things that we should do or adjust to help grow. But we
Sure.
need to make sure that those things don't tarnish what makes us us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
Of
that's
course.
that's the hardest thing. That's true with anything. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
having remembering where you came from. People always talk about that shit with like athletes and stuff. Like, oh, they forgot where they came from, but it's like it's really true because when when those endorphins hit and you get that rush of what that feeling is like even something as simple as like, oh, I got 1,000 views. Like 1,000
Yeah.
views is a big deal. There's 1,000 people who watch my video,
Right.
and it's like, and then it becomes 2,000 views, it becomes 5, and it becomes 10, and like it feels really good. And I feel like it's one of those things of people get stuck chasing that high. And
Yeah.
it's almost like a drug. It's like, oh, I have no no vices. It's like, yes, you do. Those
Yeah,
views, those
yeah.
clicks are your
You got any
vice.
more of those views?
Yeah.
You guys got any
Right.
more of
And
those
it,
views?
it's funny because I Ludwig's the creator I really like, but
Mhm.
he's also a creator I really hate because I think he does too much for the content. Like trying too hard to make the content entertaining, but that's why
Yeah.
he's on top of the game.
Right.
But not trying hard enough to make the content Ludwig. So, like for an example, like when they play certain things, and he's admitted to it on his podcast and stuff, he will
Right.
throw or artificially make bad plays for entertainment purposes. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, fuck that. Like,
Yeah.
fuck
Right.
that. I hope because you guys know how important integrity of games is to me. Like, I like if there's like a 5-year-old sitting next to me and they want to play a game, I'm smashing that 5-year-old, bro. They're getting fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I mean,
just
I personally throw sometimes for fun. You guys already know that. Like,
well, no, it's
Okay.
but that's you. It's for fun.
Right. You're not doing it to entertain other
Yeah.
people. You're doing it because it's fun to you.
yeah,
It's
You know?
fun because you get to toy with people. That's a completely
Yeah.
different. That's like,
Right.
and it's also one of those things that you like to see someone think that they get confident because what you do is you put them on this roller coaster of like, hey, I won a match to like, oh, he let me win, and it's like,
I used to
it's-
tell Claude and Clay my phrase was, "Yo, you just got to build them up to break them down."
Yeah.
no, absolutely. So like, it's different. It's definitely different. But I'm referring to like the whole selling out for content type of deal where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna do these things because I know people will garner clicks and it will just make it so much more entertaining. But it's like, that's what I love about like CDN the third. right? We've talked about him before. Like, I think we can agree he's our favorite streamer. I don't know about Nick, but
And I don't watch streamers. I really don't.
I don't either. But
No,
if there's one I ever do
literally
watch,
the
it's
only
him.
two people I watch are like literally Asmon and him now. But
Yeah.
honestly, I haven't really watched much lately. But
Yeah,
yeah, those
but-
are like the only two.
But he's just someone who's authentically himself, and he just has fun, and that's it. Like, if he's not having fun with the game, he'll just swap games. He calls himself like the multi-genre Don.
I like that.
He's a
which-
fucking Tura.
Right, and it's just like every game he plays, he's just very much himself. And then once he stops having fun with the game, he just changes it because he's like, you guys watch the content, like blah blah blah, like it doesn't matter. And he'll like he plays StarCraft, he plays WoW, he plays like H1Z1 when it was popular. He played Fortnite for a little bit. Like he'll just switch, and then people are like, "When are you gonna bring this back?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not having fun, so I stopped playing." And
I'm-
that's it. That's
I'm-
where the conversation
I'm just saying,
ends.
anytime he streams with another streamer too, it's fun because of him.
Oh
and, like,
yeah.
Because of him. Like even when Ninja like blew up, and then like CDN was streaming with him, he was the one that was making the stream fucking entertaining, not Ninja.
Oh yeah, people kept asking Ninja to get him on because they like wanted to watch Ninja's gameplay, but with like the entertainment value he was bringing. So I don't know. It's definitely a hard line though. I mean, like I said, it's kind of something that probably is in every industry of some kind. Like I said, when you're so passionate about something, but it becomes a job, and you start having to worry about the money, the clicks, you have employees, you have all these things, you have responsibilities. Like it just takes the passion and it takes the
Don't
drive
forget
out
about
of
where you
it.
came from.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I hope that as we continue these, if we have the pleasure or the privilege to grow, that it stays like that, right? Because I mean, for me, I'll just stop doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
I was
flat
saying,
out.
we all hold each other accountable in that regard.
Yeah,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
viewers will too, right? It's like, hey, you changed. I miss old Kanye, that type of.
Oh my god.
No, but in all seriousness, guys, I think that's a good place to stop. So thank you for watching episode 17. I know this one was like kind of went in a crazy political direction, but
yeah, we went elsewhere.
we
but
went crazy
That's how
within
it
us a
goes.
little
It
bit.
is what it is.
But that's
Yeah.
what it's about. We just talked about
Yeah.
whatever comes up, and it still is in the gaming sphere, and that's kind of where we like to be. So,
I mean,
like I said,
the gaming sphere is basically like reflecting life at this point because of the,
Oh, yeah.
the size that it's got.
oh no,
Yeah.
most definitely, it's just it's just another form of pop culture of some kind, right? So, again, thank you guys for watching episode 17. We'll see you guys next week for episode 18, and
Appreciate you guys.
later for now.
Later, y'all.